Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, we are going to do a 6-month update on a pallet investment that my dad and myself made back in May of 2024, May 1st of 2024. We set aside Pokemon product that had a value on that date of $49,850. We are actual Pokemon investors. We are not cosplaying as Pokemon investors, talking about product that we do not have on YouTube. We are not showing lines and charts from TCG Player of product that we do not own. It is very easy to point at the chart, and it's very easy to say if you had bought XYZ and then held it to today, you would have made this much. This is not fake. This is actually product that we own. We could sell today if we wanted to. We are not selling it though today. We are Diamond Hands investors. We have time capsuled this until at least 2030. So 6-year minimum hold. We will review periodically, and our first review is 6 months ago. If you want to watch the original video, I will link that above me right now. There will be a link to the methodology as to what we're doing, talking about why the products were put on the pallet that were put on the pallet. But yeah, today we're just reviewing what they did. So these were the products, and I've sorted these. I will show you in a second here. I will scroll to the right. I've made it so hopefully the words are readable to some extent if you care to follow along. But top down is return performance. Back when I recorded this video, the video I linked earlier, back when I set out on this investment, back when I recorded the original video, I theorized which products might have the biggest return within 1 year. So I had anticipated doing a 1-year return video. I'm doing 6 months because things have been so crazy. I benchmarked it against the S&P 500, silver, gold, Bitcoin. I benchmarked it against other things that I will also review their return 6 months to date and comparison of things that I actually own. I think YouTube is filled with people talking about things that they could have theoretically bought, things that you theoretically could have owned. Why not talk in actual particulars of items that I own? So that is what I'm doing here. Mew UPC. Everyone should be kicking themselves. They were so widely available at the time I recorded that video. They were put onto the pallet at slightly over $100 a piece. So I think that was already shortly after the time. Maybe after that video was recorded too, is when Costco was releasing them, 80 bucks a pop. I'm not someone who goes and buys those from Costco, from retail releases like that. I generally just buy through my distributor. I buy online. I buy wholesale, bulk collections, and investments from people at 70, 80, 85%, depending on what it is. So the biggest returns were Mew UPC, 151 ETB case, Crown Zenith ETB case, Evolving Skies ETB case. So it was kind of like the big, heavy, popular sets. Crown Zenith, in spite of all the reprints they've had, in spite of all the packs trickling out through Costco, all those Sea and Sky collection, whatever it's called, the ETBs have done well. So you can see right here the value on 5/1/2024. You can see the extended price based on how many I have. And then what I have over here, this is a live spreadsheet that basically I have shared with my dad so he can check in on the investment anytime he wants to. So I have here a formula that will pull in the TCG Player market price. And you can see right here, some of them, the formula kind of breaks and I have to manually type it in. So where it says manual, I manually type that in. Where it doesn't, I have an import XML that pulls the data in. And then the return. So nearly 90% return. This is not compound annual growth rate. This is an 86.63% return in a 6-month period. So anywhere from, we had Battle Styles, which returned a negative 0.46%. We have Shiny Treasure EX, which is basically flat. That was manually put in, 30 bucks a box. You might be able to get a little bit cheaper. You might be buying it a little bit more expensive. I sell it for a fair bit more expensive. Shout out _retrospecs on Instagram is where I get all my Japanese product. But yeah, continuing on up, you've got things like Darkness Ablaze, Brilliant Stars, and then on up. You've got on up through all these things. If you want to see why these things were on Pallet 1, again, I linked the video earlier. I think that was an interesting video. The week after I did that, I did a long, hour-long thing on why I invest in Pokemon. I think it is very important to listen to, at least me personally. This is my take, my opinion. I think it's important to hear from people who are walking the walk. Talk is cheap. What are you actually doing? I don't care that you think something will 10x, because if I ask you how much you own of it and you own 2 boxes, that does not tell me that you actually think it will 10x. It's very easy to say something will 10x, and then when I see that you have nothing of it, or when I see that you have very little, when I see that you haven't mortgaged everything and put all your net worth into it, I truly see that you are not walking the walk, and I truly see what your actual convictions are. for the return on that product. So always questions people's motivations. I'm not selling any of this stuff still till at least 2030. I do have affiliate links below, Fanatics Live, eBay, all that stuff, but none of these things are directly for sale on those things. These are long-term holds. And so let's do the comparison now. So we benchmarked against the other investments that I hold. I did not arbitrarily, randomly pick like, oh, well, Bitcoin, you could have done this. These are things that I hold. So my most substantial holding, when you count my entire business and the fact that my livelihood comes from Pokemon, my number one holding by far is Pokemon. These pallets, and pallet 2 you see here on the list, we will talk about pallet 2 in a few minutes towards the end. I had mentioned it in my video earlier, my video 6 months ago, that pallet 2 would be underway. I said that instead of building everything all at once, it would make more sense as opportunities present themselves. I will add product to the pallet when it makes sense. If a new reprint, re-release, if somebody hits me up with an 80% offer, if a distributor hits me up with a half a pallet or something, I will build the pallet day by day, week by week, month by month. I will put things onto it that make sense. So my dad and I have kind of like agreed amongst ourselves, we will plow another $2,000 to $4,000 a month each. Well, the exact number, $2,000 to $4,000 a month total. So $1,000 to $2,000 a month each, approximately. You will see the number that we've already put onto pallet 2 is exceeding that slightly because it felt like good opportunities were there. So I've exceeded what we have originally, and it will be very much a buy feel thing. It might take us 2 years to build pallet 2 if opportunities seem sparse. We might build it in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months if opportunities seem very frequent. And so yeah, pallet 1 originally what it was worth was $49,850 the day that we built it. Today, $60,524.20. So a 21.41% return. Caveat disclaimer, if you were to disassemble pallet 1 and you were to sell it all, you would pay fees. You would either sell for 80% and then you would actually break even, or you would sell through eBay, TCG Player, you would sell to your LGS, you would sell to some streamer at 85, 90%. So it would be hard to actually, one, I'd have to physically go to where it's stored. I would have to physically take it apart. I would have to pack, ship, boxes, all that stuff. So 6 months, 20% is vastly exceeding my expectations. The fact that I could already sell everything and break even, I truly would have expected 5-10% return, something along those lines, maybe not even that, to where having to liquidate it, I would have lost money. The fact, like honestly, I'm not trying to say it in a negative way, but if I had to liquidate pallet 1, after 6 months, I could break even. That is actually astonishing. That is actually really good. And one thing that I mentioned in that video before, I did not sell my dad into half of the pallet at full retail. You'll see on pallet 2, the methodology, the way that I did it, I actually show you what both of our buy-in prices were. I just split my allocation of Twilight Masquerade. I split what we put onto it of certain things. Pallet 2 will come though. Let's look where else my money is. So Pokemon by far. The pallets are a subset of what I have. I have all my Troll and Toad Evo inventory. I have all the Evo over with Retro in Washington, all my Japanese booster boxes. I have some inventory with Skya, TCG Player inventory. I have inventory with both PK and Ponga, my Fanatics live streamers. So I have inventory kind of spread all over the place. I have a bunch of inventory at Fanatics. If you want to consign, feel free to reach out. There are my rates down below. But my inventory is all over the place. I have a bunch of inventory here on hand. I have the vast majority, I wouldn't say the vast, the majority, the highest singular contribution to my net worth is Pokemon value, for sure. Second would be S&P 500. So S&P 500, I won't say an exact number, but like, it's in the 6 figures. It's not in the 7 figures. But if things keep trucking the way that they are, it won't be away from the 7 figures for too much longer. 14.16% return on the S&P 500. And again, this is not to like downplay one. This is not to upplay another one. Just a statement of fact. If I were to want to liquidate, so say an investor that was actually buying things, if an investor put $100,000 into Pokemon, matching exactly what I bought, because to be fair, the Mew UPC case went 87%. Paldea Evolved booster cases went 36%. You could have individually put all your money in the Mew UPC case and you would have exceeded everything on the chart, right? But what I did was a blend of actually items that I hold. I've never seen a video like this from anyone else where they are parking money in a mutual fund of sorts and they are showing for the world to see exactly what are the components and then following up down the line. I cannot tell you every day how many hours of content are uploaded of people pointing at charts with rocket emojis, with green lines of product that is all theoretical. Product that they do not own, they will never own, and or they will never own a substantial portion of it. Hey, I think this set is a good buy and hold for the next 5 years. I think it's going to double. I think it's going to beat the S&P 500. Well, how much do you own? Sometimes zero. They never really say. They often don't say. This is what I actually own. So I think that's important context. But the S&P 500, if you would put $100,000 into that, I mean, there's no, like, pallet one is my specific blend of things that I put on a pallet. The S&P 500 is a very formulated blend of the top 500 companies by market cap in the United States. So if you were to have done that, you could functionally sell 100, say 100,000 went in 6 months ago. You would have $114,000 worth right now. You could click one button in one instant without any effect on the market whatsoever. You could sell all of that like this, literally like this. If it's in a tax sheltered account, there's no investment gains to pay either. So if you held that in your IRA, if you held that in your 401k, you can sell, lock in. There's no short-term capital gains. There's no long-term capital gains. Roth IRA, you've already paid the taxes up front. You don't pay any more. Like, that is just a pro of the S&P 500. The liquidity, the tax considerations, all those things. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just showing you actual data, actual information. Bitcoin. I own some amount of Bitcoin. I said in my last video 6 months ago that it's approximately very low. Like, it's barely 6 figures. It might be, depending on the day, very high 5 figures, very low 6 figures. It's just how much I own. And as a matter of fact, as a statement of fact, that is slightly outperformed my Pokemon pallet. I did not have to go and I did not have to manually load hundreds of pounds of Bitcoin into my minivan. I did not have to manually load hundreds of pounds of Bitcoin onto a pallet, bring it over, have my dad help me put it with a forklift up on a shelf in a storage warehouse. I did not have to do any of that. I did not have to do that with my S&P 500. It is just a statement of fact that I own some amount of that, and I could click one button and a measly $100,000 in Bitcoin, you could sell that in one instant. You could click one button. You would have a negligible to zero effect on the market price. And that is one of the benefits of things like equities and things like cryptocurrencies. Lots of risks there. I'm not going to give all the caveats and disclaimers. I do that enough on my channel. But it is just a simple statement of fact that all the Bitcoin that I held, and between May and November, I have bought nor sold any Bitcoin. I have bought nor sold any S&P 500. Because what I do is, with my S&P 500, I pre-fund in January and February. I pre-fund for the entire year, filling all my buckets. He's going to show the buckets. He's going to do it. Where are the buckets? Let me go back here so I can show my buckets. So I pre-fill all my 401ks, IRAs. I do that as a lump sum essentially in January and February. So my S&P 500 holdings have been flat, as far as flat in the quantity that I hold, but clearly the price has gone up by 14.16%. More accurately, in my IRA, I believe I hold VT-Sax. In my 401k, I own VU and then some other funds. I don't own explicitly exactly the S&P 500, but for simplification purposes, it's easier to point to that than to try to break down the exact against all my accounts, against all my wife's accounts. We merge our money together. But yeah, it is just interesting to be able to track items that I actually believe in, items that I actually own. I have a measurable portion of my net worth, most in Pokemon, amongst all these things though. Gold and silver being the vast exception. I mentioned 6 months ago that my dad actually has a much more substantial portion in silver. I think it was interesting to put this on there. This is a live spreadsheet that my dad can see at any time. So tracking for him what the silver price is relative to his Pokemon investments, very, very similar. It's just interesting how much silver he owns, dwarving what he owns probably in Pokemon, having bought into that half pallet with me. But this is an actual investor tracking actual returns. There's enough theory out there. Save the theory for like mathematics and science, that's all good stuff. But like, I don't want theoretical investment returns. I want ones that people actually achieved, and I want to hear their convictions. I want to see and hear their methodologies as to why they're doing what they're doing. That's what I try to do on this channel. It's what I like to see. Transparency is what I expect of others. A lot of people don't give it. So I like to put out in the world what I would like to receive back, what I would like to see. Openness, honestness, transparency. Hopefully it provides some amount of educational entertainment value. I don't know, but I'm just I'm documenting my journey here on this channel. So with that, I will go back to my Chrome browser and I will show you pallet 2. What is on this mysterious pallet 2 and how is it worth $32,000? Did Dan and his dad in 6 months already put $32,000 onto pallet 2? No, we did not. We have seen absurd returns on what we've put onto pallet 2. So what we have put on it is $22,444. We've put $22,444 onto it, which across 6 months, it actually falls into that $2,000 to $4,000 a month range. We are towards the higher end of it because it has felt as if opportunities were plenty. And one thing I mentioned, I'll bounce back between pallet 1 and pallet 2 as we go. One thing I mentioned is long term. I would love to hold 20 cases of most Pokemon booster sets. I only put like 10 cases of SV1. I only put 7 cases of SV4. You will see on pallet 2, I rounded out the SV4 holdings to 10 cases. Someday I would love for it to be 20, but once they go on the pallet, they do not come off for 5 or 6 years minimum. 2030 for the first one. Pallet 2 probably won't be complete until 2025, so that one might just be 5 years. And then once we get pallet 2 complete, it'll probably be a 5-year rolling basis as the pallets are wrapped and stored away. That will be the intent, at least. That will be the intent. That will be the mandated minimum hold. And then maybe I hold longer, pending what I see in 2030, pending what I see 5 years later. But one noticeable contribution here that has performed really well. I had a good feeling on Japanese 151. I had a good enough feeling that I'm like, hey, and I don't, the way that this is done, I'm like the active manager of the pallet fund. I don't call my dad and say, hey, I've got a good feeling about Japanese 151. What do you think about buying 100 boxes at 55 each? He gives me full autonomy, full control. I make all decisions on what goes onto the pallet. And it's very easy to say, Dan, 151 went down to 40 bucks. Like, that's just when I happened to buy them. That's when I decided to add them. I was very close to adding another 100 when they were at like 40. I just didn't end up doing it at that time. Like, you could see the month that I added certain things here. I don't remember exactly, but like, yeah, if you want to just sort it, let me filter it again. If you want to sort it top down by the returns that some of these have already seen, like I feel like I did poorly. And what I'm calling today's, so I put it on at 55 a box. What I'm calling today's market value for 151, essentially because it's like my replacement cost as of today, approximately, I'm calling it 80 bucks today. I could have doubled my money. I could have had 100% return if I picked out the perfect bottom. And mind you, through underscore retrospects IG, through underscore retrospects on IG, on Instagram, I have been constantly buying, selling. We buy, he buys, he stores, he fulfills through my eBay, and we both make money. He makes money on the labor side of it, and I tie him in with some of the upside. We have an agreement actually just before this video is being recorded. I went through and for the months of September and October, I calculated how much each of us made. Me for having the platform and the capital, him for having the sourcing, him for having the fulfilling, all that stuff. We have a pretty good partnership going where alongside of this, I am iterating on making more money on the Japanese products, buying, selling, replacing for cheaper. So I'm always iterating, always making margin. In hindsight, it would have been beautiful. But one thing that we heard, it's very easy. It is so easy for people, and myself included, to Monday morning quarterback me and say like, Dan, you added Twilight Masquerade. You just said recently on a live stream, you got allocated 38 cases of Surging Sparks. Why did you not tie in with your dad 38 cases? Why did you not have the foresight to put all 38 cases on the pallet? Hindsight's a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, mine only goes backwards. It doesn't go forwards. Once people get foresight, once people get perfect foresight, let me know. Tap me in on how to do that. But I unfortunately only added 4 cases. And one thing I'm doing too, the way that I'm doing it, and maybe I'll change the number moving ahead, but I am locking us in. So I am taking 4 cases of my allocation, my personal allocation, and I'm passing that to my dad at my allocation cost, regardless of what the set does. So you can see right here, SV6, SV8, SV7, every set moving ahead, minimum. So I will do 4, and I'm not gonna do the thing where like, oh man, this is a dud set, it's gonna suck. Hey dad, have 20 cases now. It is not gonna be like that. If or when I ever change from four cases per set, it will be towards all sets moving ahead. The reason that I like 4, my long-term target is 20. Some amount I keep on hand. Mind you, like all these pallets are solely long-term locked away. These are off-site. I have more of all of this on site. I have more of all of this that are not accounted for on these spreadsheets, on these pallets. These are, I only own half. So 2 of these 4 Twilight Masquerade booster cases are mine. 2 of these 4 are my dad's. But we put them on at $92.50 a pop. We put them on at $92.50, what I pay my distributor. We put Surging Sparks on, even though it's not out yet. As I record, this is not yet out. It is currently $148.50 on TCG Player. So my dad bought in to 2 cases at $92.50 a pop, and we're already up 61% on that investment before it's even hit the pallet. This is one that I've accounted for the money, but it's not even physically hit the pallet yet. But say SV9, SV10, SV11, we will also add 4 cases. Even if P Football Pete is selling them for $90, even if Safari Zone, Hills Wholesale Gaming, if people are selling them for $85, $90, they will still be on the spreadsheet at $92.50 or whatever my distributor charges me, because that's the process by which I'm doing it. And if down the line, when, and one demonstration you'll see of this, I'm also tying my dad into restocks. So if and when restocks happen, sadly with Paldea Evolved, I only had 4 cases come through. 4 cases come through at $105 a piece. Well, I mean, it's not too sad because we're already 26% up. And that's not, this is not 6-month returns. So mind you, for this exercise here, we are up 30,000. We're up to 30.8 thousand on 22,444 cost basis. Some of this stuff literally isn't on the pallet yet. Some of this stuff we've held for 0 days. Some of it we've held for 1 month. The Paldea Evolve reprint. Like this is let me do what this is quick. So the return on the pallet already is 37%. Let me subtract 1 off so we don't have the 137%. So the return on this pallet that is underway, the original pallet returned, what did I say? The original pallet returned 21.41% in 6 months. Pallet 2 is already up 37.49% in the oldest product entered the pallet 6 months ago. The newest product hasn't hit the pallet yet, and we're up 37.49%. So pallet 1 did amazing, exceeded expectations. Pallet 2, largely on Japanese 151, Twilight Masquerade, and Surging Sparks stonking. It's doing amazing. And like you see Stellar Crown. So again, I got my dad. That one I only got hit for 90 at launch price. So my dad is into Stellar Crown and Paradox Rift at 90 each. But we're only up, being the general wholesale to retail margin, where we're up 15 to 20%, where you can't really sell that and actualize a gain because you're working against 12% eBay fees. You're working against shipping fees. Like these are just the actual logistics, the actual things you need to consider when holding such. Like it's very easy for people to make a video and say this and that, and like, but actually going through the practice of buying them, putting them on a pallet, holding them, being someone who has an exit plan, being someone who has the ability and sells 7 figures of product through various platforms every year, I think that's very meaningful. I think that is highly meaningful. And I'm going to wrap up. I might go back to the pallets in a minute, but I might not have to. I have a little bit of notes here. So as I said in my video 6 months ago, as I said in the video, I will link another video. So why do I invest in Pokemon? A lot of people will say, well, I invest in Pokemon. The people who you have no idea if they hold any, you have no idea if they own any, if they've ever bought any, but they sure have affiliate links below for you to buy them if you want to. They you have no idea if they're actually doing it. And I think context of the walk. Talk is cheap. I want to see what people are doing. Show me what you're doing. You don't have to, but like that is what I prefer to see. And by no means is this a flex. This is one guy selling partially an investment in Pokemon to his dad. The top might be in. Is the top in? The top was not in 6 months ago. The amount of people, I pinned James's comment. This is a top signal. It's crazy the amount of top signals that have occurred between 6 months ago and now, and the market continues to go up. Actual investments, not just TCG Player lines of theoretically things that you could have done, actual things that were set aside consciously for their future price appreciation. The amount of people in my video, oh, Dan's selling in his dad Scarlet and Violet era booster boxes that his dad's just going to get wrecked on. one of the top 5 performers. So the 5th best performer on Pallet 1 was Paldea Evolved. The amount of people that would have thought selling in 105 a box to my dad back in May of 2024. The amount of people that would have thought like that's crazy, that's nuts, and it's like talk is cheap. Talk is very cheap. Talk is very easy. It is very easy to Monday morning quarterback and say coulda, shoulda, woulda. But like this is what I did 6 months ago. The proof is there. The proof was linked earlier. And the week after that, I think I mentioned I was going to link it, but I will have linked somewhere. I'm probably linking right now. I'm linking right now a week later, a week after that video of what went on my pallet, why I'm investing in Pokemon. There's a lot to be said about the tax advantages, all my buckets, all the things that they afford. I talk about that in that video. I have a video called Financial Advice, which I will link, where I talk about why I invest in the S&P 500, why that is all like the underlying engine to my net worth moving ahead. Someday, like as much as I can guarantee that someday my net worth's majority will be the passive nature of S&P 500 index funds in my buckets, in all my tax advantage buckets. And that is where I am passive. That is where I do not have any further knowledge than other people. I think I have experience and I think I have some amount of expertise. I would not call myself a universal expert in Pokemon, but me being in the trenches day to day, moving 7 figures of product, I think I have a reasonable idea of how to navigate this. And that is why I actively partake in the trade of Pokemon as a full-time business and as a part-time investor. I do invest in it some with the excess. Once my buckets are full with the traditional stuff, I do not do any S&P 500 type stuff in brokerage accounts. All of it is done. I max out all the buckets, and then all the buckets overflow over, and the rest goes into Pokemon. Some little amount goes into playing in crypto. Some little amount goes into covering what the sugar mama's salary doesn't quite cover. But I will link above household spending. I'm transparent with what my household needs year by year to survive, what we spend. I think finance is very taboo, and I think for like good reason. I understand why, but I think there's very good benefits that come from putting things out there and talking about them in the open, even though it may be hard. I think there's just a lot of use that could be gleaned from hearing how other people navigate different situations with finances. And so I do that. Again, entertainment, education, whatever it may be. If you get some kind of value out here, let me know in the comments below. Throw the money bag emoji if you're still watching 27 and a half minutes later. I might still have 10, 15 minutes to go. Who knows? We're going to see. But by no means is this a flex. This whole video is not an exercise to say, like, look at what I did. I can't believe you didn't do it. Some people will have done purely 151 UPCs, and they will have crushed my returns. Some people will have done some random stock. They did some options on some stock. They posted over in Wall Street Bets on Reddit, and they went from Kia Sportages like I drive up to Lamborghinis, and I'm still in my Sportage. But Rudy is doing this at a much higher level. This is just one guy showing part of what he's doing. The pallets are part of it. The rest of the Pokemon business is encompassed in other videos, but this one was specifically about the pallets. And it's funny to look back and think, like, I thought the UPC cases, I thought the Zard UPC cases, I didn't mention the 151 UPC cases. I thought I singled out the Zard UPC cases specifically would be the highest performer in a year. To be fair, it's not been a year yet, and they might be. But as of today, they're the 6th highest performer at 29% over a 6-month span. And one thing I wanted to comment on too, this whole modern sealed investing. I believe in it. I'm doing it. Walk versus talk. But one thing that I do it consciously knowing, there is risk. There's risk of this stuff staying flat for a long time. There's risk of this stuff going down. It absolutely could happen. I attribute some percentage to that being a possibility. Some of these boxes could go to $80 and be there for years. It's happened in the past. Some boxes have gone to $40 in the past and stayed there for years. So it could happen. This is all excess money. All my buckets are filled. All my obligations are taken care of. There's no debt. There's none of that stuff going on. Know your opportunity cost. If you are investing, the number one and number two consideration for investors, in my opinion, and I think frankly in the opinions of most financial minds, I would think, are opportunity cost. If your sole goal is financial gain, where else could you get it? And then like risk adjusted. risk-adjusted returns, risk-adjusted opportunity cost if you have 30% credit card debt. That is a guaranteed return. Like, absolutely, over the past 6 months, Mew UPCs have returned 86%. There's an alternate reality where they did not. There's an alternate reality where they got 2 print runs over the summer. There's an alternate reality where those are $80 a box still. They are flat, they are down. You will lose 20% having to sell them after paying 30% interest compounded over month and month and month. So one final thing that I want to leave people with, well, two things. So I was headed one place, and I have belief in Pokemon to navigate properly the supply and demand equilibrium in the coming years and decades. I think Pokemon will outlive me. I hope to live 50 years. I hope Pokemon lives thousands of years. I hope Pokemon lives forever. I hope I do too, but I don't think that'll be solved in my lifetime. But I see Pokemon modern investing as an unstoppable force versus an immovable object situation. I would call the unstoppable force the amount of consumption. So we know the print runs are historic. We know the print runs are the highest they've ever been. We also theorize strongly based off the fact that years ago I was keeping 2 boxes of every set. Years later, I was keeping 2 cases of every set. These days, I'm trying to keep 20 cases of every set. My dad is investing. The amount of people that I've had reach out, the amount of people, like distributors to some extent, are investing / retailing, whatever you want to call it. Distributors are holding back product, not wholesale distributing it as they get it. They are holding some back, and they are selling boxes at market, near market, 120, 140, 180, depending on the box, depending on the size of the reprint. When Paldea Evolved came back out on a reprint, they did not wholesale that to me at the normal cost. They did not wholesale it to me at the $92.50. They retailed it functionally at $105 a piece, or they bundled it. They sold product that doesn't sell otherwise. So they have their ways of getting things out there. Functionally, they're retailing product, if not investing in product. They are setting some amount back. They are trickling some amount through. Limit 1 case per week, limit 2 cases per week. But I truly think, so I would call that the immovable object. I would call the mountains of product that are coming out of the printing facilities in Pokemon, I would call that mountain the immovable object, and I would call the immovable object my pallet. I mean, it's so heavy, it's so big that I can't physically pick it up without the help of a machine, without a pallet jack, without a forklift. My dad and I together could not get that thing off the ground. So I would call the sheer amount of product and the sheer amount of investing going on today. And some people boogeyman that. Some people say this stuff can never go up, will never go up because everyone's investing. How is a 1 in 1,000 chase card pull rate of the Moonbryon, of the Giratina, of these very rare cards? How are the pop reports 10,000 plus? If you tell me a card is 1 out of 1,000 packs and 15,000 have been graded a 10, you just told me that 15 million products, 15 million packs of that product have been opened. 15 million packs? That's 500,000 booster boxes or ETBs or collection boxes, wherever it's coming from. And that's only what's graded. Most people do not grade cards. If you tell me there's 15,000 Moonbryons in cases, there's way more than 15,000 not in cases. So if you tell me 500,000 booster boxes worth of product have been opened to get the Moonbryons that are in cases, only at PSA. That's not TAG, that's not BGS, that's not CGC, that's not SGC, that's not ABC XYZ. That is solely PSA. So if you mean to tell me that means that there are at least, in my opinion, this is an estimation, I think there's at least 10 to 20 times that many Moonbryons that haven't been graded. So that means there's 5 million booster boxes worth of product that have been opened. So the unstoppable force is the amount of consumption, the amount of ripping, whatnot. Fanatics Live, eBay Live, Drip, all these different platforms, YouTube, TikTok Shop, all these different platforms where product is endlessly ripped by the day. And I think that will win. I think Pokemon, coupled with the unstoppable force that is our demand. So Pokemon limiting the size of the immovable object to some extent, not making that infinite, making that finite, a reasonable size. I think Pokemon will navigate it well. And I think they will prevent us from going into the lull that we saw in 2004 to 2008. Do I think lulls will happen in the future? Absolutely. Am I ready to weather the storm? Absolutely. My wife has quite a recession resilient job. Teachers are needed, even if the economy is doing bad. Our kids still need to learn. So, like, my wife has quite a recession resilient job we have a lot of runway financially. We live below our means. We have a lot of money saved up in our savings accounts. We could live for quite some time without me selling a single booster pack of product, without even her taking home a paycheck from her job. So we've put ourselves in a situation where if a 2 to 5 year storm were to come, we would be perfectly fine going from 7 figures of sales annually to near zero annual sales. We would be perfectly fine. And I would not have to sell any of this. I would not dip into the pallet still. And one last thing that I want to leave you with. This boom that we're in, it's bigger than 2021. So in spite of unprecedented print runs, in spite of unprecedented PSA grading numbers, we are booming. We are booming like an obscene level. The Pokemon hobby, the cardboard hobby as a whole, Magic's doing it too, One Piece, Lorcana, all these things are doing really well. The hobby's growing. The fundamental confines of the hobby are expanding greatly. The pie is getting larger. The pie is getting larger, and I believe and I hope that it is something that will be a sign of things to come in the future. And I'm optimistic. I'm short on certain things. I'm short on plastic. I'm short on graded cards in Pokemon. But I am long on cardboard. I am long on these 2.5 by 3.5 inch pieces of cardboard that bring us all this joy, that bring us all this connection, that bring us all this. They bring us together a few times a year at various conventions and things like that. I'm bullish on it all. And that's why I have these pallets. That's why I'm walking the walk. And stay humble. It might not seem like it. For again, I'm one guy. To some people, this will seem like a flex. To some people, this will seem like bragging. To other people, like Rudy, if Rudy were to ever have the misfortune of watching this whole video and wasting 40 minutes of his time on a small chump like me, he would be like, "That's nothing. What is this guy talking about? This guy has no product." So it's not a flex. It is just this is what I have. These are my thoughts on why I'm doing it. 10 years from now, it will be hilarious to look back. Maybe I never will, but like to look back and say, Dan was crazy. How did he do all that? This stuff is all worth nothing now. It was so obvious in hindsight that he should have sold it all when he had the chance to. Or 10 years from now, it'll be, Dan only put this much away. Dan had Bitcoin. Bitcoin's worth nothing now. Well, the world economy is traded on new UPC cases. Like, why did he not go all in on that? Like, it'll be so interesting to look back. Maybe I never will. Maybe life will be too busy. I'll forget about all this chapter in my life. But it'll be fun to look and where I was going with that, stay humble. One thing I try to do. Just because you made money doesn't mean you were right. And I want to demonstrate that in this final way. Just because you made money doesn't mean you were right. Right now I am recording this. Almost everything is at all-time highs. That doesn't mean it's not investable. That doesn't mean you sell all your S&P 500 because it's all at all-time highs. That doesn't mean you sell all your Bitcoin because it's at all-time highs. Unless in hindsight that was the correct answer. Then that's what you should have done. But what it means is over the past 6 months, my pallet returned, mine and my dad's pallet returned 21.41%. Bitcoin returned 21.72%. Gold and silver nearly 20%. The S&P 500 15%. Everything, almost everything is at all-time highs. You could have thrown a dart at a board. A monkey could have picked investments to make in these spaces and made a crap ton of money. Just because you made money doesn't mean you were right. Just because you made money doesn't mean you made the correct decision. There are people investing on credit cards. There are people taking crazy high risks with crazy high opportunity costs. I have all my buckets filled. I have all that taken care of. I have no consumer debt. My opportunity cost is about as low as it gets, meaning I don't have any other guaranteed avenues to make high returns. So I'm seeking returns in places like this. And just to demonstrate that just because, like, don't conflate outcome with correctness of decision. I shared this during Poke Flips earlier today, and I'm going to end off with this here right at about 40 minutes. Two people walk into a casino. Inherently a bad decision. The casino makes money in the long run. Every decision you make inside of a casino, barring counting cards in blackjack when the deck is heavy with face cards. Like, let's go roulette. Roulette's fairly easy. There are 36, so 18 black, 18 red, and there are 2 green. So your odds of hitting any one of them individually is 1 in 38. 36 red and black plus 2 green. So your odds of hitting any individually are 1 in 38. They only pay 35 to 1. So there's a house edge built in. Say you want to go black, red to make it simpler. 2 guys walk in. One guy puts his life savings on black. One guy puts his life savings on red. I don't know what you call it. In blackjack, it's the dealer. What's the roulette guy's name? Let me know in the comments below if you're still listening. What's the name of the roulette guy? He's not the dealer, but he's got to have a name. There's got to be an official name for it. That guy drops the ball, spins the thing. It lands on black. The guy who landed on black made the same incorrect decision, a fundamentally negative expected value decision, to gamble his entire life savings. He had the correct outcome. He doubled his life savings. It pays 2 to 1. So the true odds of hitting black or red would be what did I say? So it'd be 18 out of 19. No, 18 out of 38. 18 out of 38, whatever that works out to. So the true odds of hitting that are 47.3%. So you had a 47.3% chance of doubling your net worth. Fundamentally negative expected value. Because when it hits green, both those guys lose their net worth. But the guy who put it all on black, he feels on top of the world. He just doubled his net worth. Just because he made money, just because the outcome was correct, does not mean his decision was. Do your best every day to make positive EV decisions if you are investing, and over the long run, it will pan out. If you spend your life at the roulette wheel, if you spend your life at the blackjack table, and thinking you're investing, you might have hot streaks. You might make some money here and there. You might double your net worth, but you are wrong. You are doing the wrong things. And just because outcome is not correctness of decision. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's a very simplified way to demonstrate what I'm saying. But yeah, I believe in this stuff. I'm here. If you're here for it, feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate everyone watching, and I will catch you all later.